People often think that true strength comes from hustling, grinding, and doing it all alone. But as a career single mom, I discovered that true strength came when I stopped forcing and started leaning into my femininity. Today, I want to share with you how leaning into my feminine power made me a stronger woman in my life, my career, and even at home with my children. Hi, I'm Amaka, and I'm a woman on a mission to help career single moms find confidence, clarity, and calm. My dad, at a very young age, pushed me into being a survival mode. And then again, when I lost my husband, it became even worse because I kept on thinking that I needed strength, I needed to do things myself to get things done, and how wrong I was. The day I decided to start to lean into softness and being feminine was the day I found my true power and my strength. And so today, I want to share with you 5 powerful things that happened the day I decided to lean into my femininity. It helped me to start trusting my intuition. At some point, I always wanted validation from outside of myself. I needed people to tell me or to even show me my worth. But once I started to lean into my feminine side, when I decided to become more softer in my approach to things, I started to see that I started to have some sort of confidence in listening to my inner self. I first of all started to fill myself with the word of God and the principles in the Bible. This is not about spending 24 hours in church. The truth is, I did not even start to go to church as much as I used to before my husband's death. I took it slowly. I first of all decided to find me, and in finding me, I leaned on the word of God and started to understand myself better and started to listen to my intuition. That was what helped me start to make better choices and become more confident in myself and what and who I am. Leaning into my feminine power taught me the power of living in the present, not thinking about what I was going to do the next day to make things work. It helped me to get rid of anxiety. And trust me, while I was healing from trauma, I usually had bouts of anxiety and panic attack. But once I started to lean into my feminine side, I stopped worrying, I stopped being anxious over things. I lived in the present. I asked myself, what do I need to do now to move me from where I am to at least a step further to where I want to be? And once I started to have that shift in my mindset about not worrying and knowing that, I started leaning into the masculine being in my life, which is God. I started to understand that I needed not to worry, but to focus on what needed to be done at that particular point in time to move me a step further. It shifted my confidence and my self-worth. I started to believe in me. I started to believe in my abilities. I started to believe in what God had put in me to be able to break boundaries, to be able to look fear in the face and do it anyway. Sometime early in 2024, I told myself my mantra for this year was, anything that scares you, do it. So I continued to do it even when I was afraid, and my confidence level went from here to here. I started to show up for myself in work. At the boardroom, I spoke up. I no longer shrunk. I was no longer shrinking myself for anybody. I decided to take my life into my hands. I stopped apologizing for who I was, and it was not long before my bosses, my superiors started to notice and started to even give me more responsibilities that I was handling, because they could see that I was willing and ready to take on more. And this started to show in every other aspect of my life. My kids even started to notice, and even as they started giving me some comments like, oh, I am now fully giving them attention and all. Also improved how I showed up at work. While I was healing from trauma some time ago, I would be mute at meetings. I wouldn't want to discuss anything, or even when I had ideas, I would keep it and think to myself that my ideas were not good enough. But once I started to lean into my feminine and softer side, I started to become even more confident. I took up courses that helped me become hone my skills and become more sharper at critical thinking. I started to become more confident. My colleagues even noticed, my bosses, and it even helped me to become more visible at work. I spoke up at meetings. I started to even bring up ideas that was going to help change the trajectory of even the business of the company. I became very visible. When it showed up, it did not show up in just the way I spoke up. It showed up in the way I carried myself. It showed up in the way I spoke. It showed up in the way I dressed and took care of myself. I started to look inwards and take care of myself because I didn't have any other body, and for me to be able to be there for my kids, I needed to show. They started to respect me more. My kids started to even notice the changes in how I dealt with them. With this newly found confidence in myself, I started to make decisions with more confidence and not even afraid of the outcome, because I knew that even if the outcome did not go as I wanted it to be, I had put in the work and I was proud of what I was able to accomplish at any level. I started to even get compliments from people around me. People I never knew would stop me and tell me, oh, so there's this certain glow. I've been looking at you from afar for a while. I knew you went through this. And usually, it helped me to attract peace and abundance without chasing. I stopped chasing things. I stopped chasing people to validate me. I stopped chasing things. I started to attract abundance. I was no longer lacking anything because I didn't feel that there was anything I needed at that time that God was not able to provide. If I didn't have it at that time, it simply meant that I wasn't yet ripe for this. I stopped chasing and rather started attracting what I needed in that season of my life. I began to grow mentally. I began to see the physical changes because I committed to certain things that normally I wouldn't want to do because my emotional stability and my self-worth was at a very low. But once I started to step into my feminine power, I started to see changes around me, within me, and everything started to align. So you see, femininity isn't weakness. If you're a single mom and you're afraid to tap into your softness, into your feminine power, do not hesitate to, because that is actually where your power lies. It is not about stressing about where the next meal is coming from or stressing about money. If you're able to tap in within what God has put in you, and then you will start to see the changes in your mindset, in the way you do things. It just takes a little shift. Believing that you do not have to be anxious to get things done. Being anxious about things actually solves no problem. Tap into your softness today and thank me tomorrow. If this resonates with you, do well to subscribe. I post videos every week to help single moms go from struggling to finding clarity, confidence, and calm. And so that will be all from me until my next video. I'm looking forward to having you then. Take care of yourself and bye, lovely.